There is a hidden truth in the noise of the cosmos, a truth that vibrates silently, invisible but ever present, a secret guarded within the walls of cathedrals, in ancient temples, in forgotten sacred chants, and even within our own bodies. This truth is simple, primordial, absolute. Everything is sound. Already at the dawn of time, long before man invented words, the universe spoke. It did so with frequencies, vibrations, harmonies, and all the great spiritual traditions of the world from east to west have always agreed on one point: existence begins with a sound. In Genesis, God doesn't build the world with his hands, he creates it with his voice. God said, "Let there be light," and light was the first act of creation. So it's a vibration, a wave, a word. But in the Gospel of John, we find even more mysterious words.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Not light, matter, atom, word. An ancient term, almost archaic, but in Greek it translates as logos, and logos is not just word, it's intelligence, cosmic order, structured sound. In the Vedic world, the universe originates from the sacred syllable Om, a sound believed to hold all of creation. Hindu masters don't just say Om represents the cosmos, they say it is the cosmos, the mother vibration from which all else descends. In Jewish tradition, God's name is untranslatable, unpronounceable, and powerful for that reason. The tetragram, Yahweh, is not meant to be read, but to be experienced as an inner vibration. Some Kabbalists claim that correctly pronouncing the name means tuning in with the very act of creation. These aren't just poetic metaphors. Modern science is now discovering what sages already knew. Sound is a force capable of shaping reality, so we can define sound as something more than just a physical phenomenon. If that's true, the ancients were right to link it to divine intelligence. Today we'll take an incredible journey that will lead us to discover ancient traditions and the most recent scientific discoveries. But before we begin, as always, we invite you to subscribe to the channel to support our work and to not miss our upcoming videos. A world where every note you hear is not just music, but medicine. A world where sound doesn't just touch your ears, but penetrates your being, tuning your body, your mind, your spirit. A world where melody is more than art. It's a bridge to the unseen. For centuries, musicians, mystics, and healers have believed that such a world existed. It wasn't a dream, but a tangible reality, built on a precise frequency, 432 hertz, called the frequency of harmony, the natural frequency, or even the frequency of God. This vibration seemed to resonate with the very order of the cosmos. Yet today the world sounds at 440 hertz, a difference of just 8 cycles per second. A technical detail, apparently. But what happens when an entire civilization changes its tuning? And what if this choice was random? Let's go back to a time when music was not just entertainment, but a sacred language. In ancient Greece, Pythagoras didn't just study triangles and theorems. He was a mystic, a philosopher who saw numbers as the key to deciphering the universe. For him, music was living mathematics, a reflection of divine proportions. His musical scales, built on perfect numerical ratios, were mirrors of celestial harmony designed to shape the soul. It is said that Pythagoras tuned his instruments following natural cycles, proportions found in the movements of the planets, in the spiral of a seashell, in the heartbeat of the earth itself. Some modern scholars claim that his tuning was close to 432 hertz, a frequency that, according to mathematical calculations, aligns with biological and cosmic rhythms. But let's move forward in time and go to the Renaissance. The Gothic cathedrals, with their soaring spires, were more than architectural masterpieces. They were acoustic instruments. Their vaults amplified Gregorian chants that resonated at frequencies seen as therapeutic and divine. Many of these chants, according to scholars, were sung on scales that approached 432 hertz. Music was therefore not just an ornament, it was a gateway, a way to tune the human being with the universal order, to heal the body and awaken the spirit. Verdi, the opera master, believed this. In 1884, he wrote a passionate letter to the Italian government, asking that the standard tuning be set at 432 hertz. He called it the natural frequency, softer, more attuned to the human voice and capable of touching the heart. It wasn't just an aesthetic preference. Verdi believed that sound had a profound, almost alchemical power, and he wasn't the only one. Mozart, Bach, the great composers of the past worked in an era when tuning varied, but it often came close to this harmonic frequency. But then something changed. In 1939, an international congress in London established 440 hertz as the global standard, a practical move to standardize instrument production and simplify things for orchestras worldwide. But behind this choice, there is a shadow. Some sources, not always recognized by official historians, suggest the 440 hertz push was not entirely innocent. Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi minister of propaganda, reportedly viewed this frequency as a psychological weapon. According to some theories, 440 hertz creates a subtle tension, a vibration that agitates the mind and disconnects the individual from their own center. It is not a frequency that calms, but one that stimulates. It's a controversial theory, of course, and there are no official documents confirming a deliberate conspiracy. Yet the historical context invites reflection. Nazi propaganda used music as a tool for emotional control, military marches, patriotic anthems, melodies that incited action, certainly not contemplation. Could a slightly higher, tighter frequency really serve this purpose? And if it wasn't Goebbels, who else would have been interested in changing the sound of the world? Modern science gives us some clues. Psychoacoustic studies show that frequencies influence our mental state. According to some researchers, 432 hertz is in resonance with the Schumann frequency, about 7.83 hertz, the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat. This connection fosters harmony and grounding. Experiments conducted by musicians and sound therapists report that 432 hertz music induces relaxation, mental clarity, even a sense of wholeness. On the contrary, 440 hertz is often perceived as more aggressive, more mental. It's not a difference you notice right away. You don't just perceive it in listening, but in your body itself, in the way the sound surrounds you or pushes you. And what if this vibration, repeated endlessly in every pop song, in every advertising jingle, every sound, was slowly changing the way we perceive the world? There's another, even more fascinating aspect. 432 hertz is not just a musical frequency, it's a mathematical proportion. It's connected to the number 432, which mysteriously appears in many traditions in India. The Vedic texts mention cosmic cycles lasting 432,000 years. In Babylonian astronomy, the number 432 is associated with celestial movements, even in sacred geometry. The 432 intertwines with the golden ratio, the proportion that governs nature, from the helix of DNA to the arrangement of a flower's petals. It's as if this frequency were a code, an echo of universal order. What if shifting to 440 hertz intentionally or not was a way to separate us from that code, to break our connection with nature, with the cosmos, with ourselves? It's not an easy question and it doesn't have a definitive answer, but just asking it invites us to look beyond the surface, to search for the truth hidden in the folds of sound. In the heart of the 20th century, a Swiss scientist named Hans Jenny asked a simple but revolutionary question: what happens when sound meets matter? To find an answer, he built an experiment that was as elegant as it was powerful. He poured sand, fine powders, or liquids onto metal plates connected. Then he made those surfaces vibrate with pure sounds, precise notes, and what he saw left him speechless. The sand began to dance. The particles, at first scattered randomly, organized themselves into complex, symmetrical patterns. Alive, perfect circles, spirals, and geometric figures took shape before his eyes. Each frequency created a unique pattern. At 432 Hz, the shapes were fluid, harmonious like flowers blooming. At dissonant frequencies, the patterns shattered, becoming chaotic and unstable. Jenny was not just observing a physical phenomenon, she was witnessing an act of creation. Sound, like an invisible architect, gave shape to the formless, structuring chaos. Seeing those patterns, you immediately think of sacred symbols carved in temples worldwide. Tibetan mandalas with hypnotic geometry and Gothic cathedral rose windows that vibrate with light. Egyptian hieroglyphs that tell of a cosmos ordered by invisible forces. And what if these ancient symbols were not just art? What if they were the visual representation of sacred sounds, of frequencies that the ancients knew and revered? Is it possible that cymatics can show us how a sound can create order? And above all, what happens when that sound encounters a living body? A body made of water, of cells, of vibrations? We now enter vibrational medicine, a field merging science and spirituality in ways we're just starting to grasp. In the field of sacred music and vibrational medicine, what are called Solfeggio frequencies are making a comeback, an ancient tonal scale used in Gregorian chants, made up of tones considered to be spiritual and transcendent healers. These tones, long forgotten, have been rediscovered as healing tools. Each has a unique spiritual effect on people. 396 Hz, for example, is said to dissolve fear and guilt like a wind sweeping away shadows. 417 Hz opens the door to change by unlocking stagnant energies. 528 Hz. It's known as the frequency of love and is linked to cellular regeneration, and some say DNA repair. The frequency at 639 Hz seems instead to harmonize relationships, while the frequency at 963 Hz elevates consciousness like a ladder toward the divine. These aren't random numbers. Tradition says they vibrate with the body's energy centers, the chakras for those who follow Eastern philosophies. But you don't need to believe in chakras to perceive their effect. Musicians, sound therapists, and scientists are exploring the power of these frequencies. Let's take 528 Hz, the so-called frequency of love. The biochemist Glenn Reen, in a 1998 study, exposed samples of human DNA to this frequency and observed something extraordinary. The bioenergetic activity of the cells increased, and the DNA seemed to respond to the sound as if it were alive, aware, and tuned in. Other, less conventional experiments have shown that water, which makes up about 70% of our body, changes its structure when exposed to 528 Hz, creating balanced, symmetrical crystals, like those noted by Masaru Emoto in his well-known studies on intentions and vibrations. If sound can reorganize water, what could it do to our bodies, which are made of liquids, tissues, and electrical impulses? It seems that ancient traditions were aware of how sound interacts with matter. Medieval monks, for example, by chanting Gregorian chants, were not only trying to pray, they were trying to heal. Their long and deep tones vibrated differently in the bones, the lungs, and the heart. In the same way, Vedic mantras, repeated for hours, were not vocal exercises. They were spiritual technologies designed to realign the body and mind with the cosmos. Music therapy still uses sound to ease stress, relieve pain, and boost memory. Hospitals and clinics are testing certain frequencies to treat anxiety, insomnia, and trauma. But at this point, a question arises. If sound can heal, why don't we use it more? Why do solfeggio frequencies, cymatics, and vibrational medicine remain on the fringes of mainstream science? Someone might argue that sound is too simple, too universal, and too difficult to control. You can't patent a frequency, just like you can't sell a monk's chant. Someone else might say instead that we've forgotten how to listen, and that in the noise of the modern world, we've lost the ability to feel the vibrations that surround us, pass through us, and define us. Clearly, we don't have a definitive answer to this question, but if we look at ancient traditions, it wasn't just sound that mattered, but also silence. All spiritual traditions from east to west have revered silence as a gateway to the knowledge of the divine. In Zen Buddhism, one meditates to empty the mind and make space for the sound without sound. In Christian mysticism, the Desert Fathers sought inner silence to hear God's whisper. In Jewish Kabbalah, the name of God is not pronounced but is breathed. It vibrates like a breath that passes through one's being. Even in modern science, silence has a role. String theory tells us that the universe, at its core, is made of infinitesimal vibrations. But those vibrations emerge from a quantum vacuum, a primordial silence pulsing with potential. But why is silence so powerful? Why is it seen as the 0 point? The origin, like darkness, is the canvas for light. Silence is the space where sound takes shape, and in that silence, our mind, our body, and our consciousness can finally tune in to a higher frequency. In recent decades, science has investigated this mystery using electrodes and magnetic resonance instead of mantras or prayers. Brainwaves, the electrical rhythms of our brain, tell us a fascinating story. Each mental state has its own vibration. Beta waves keep us alert and analytical, immersed in the chaos of daily life. Alpha waves emerge when we relax, when the mind quiets down and the world becomes softer. Theta waves, on the border between wakefulness and dreaming in deep meditation, where insights are born like flashes. And finally, there are gamma waves, rare and powerful, associated with states of enlightenment, universal compassion, and mystical connection. Studies on monks, Buddhists, and advanced yogis show peaks of gamma activity during meditation. Their brains in those moments seem tuned to a higher frequency, as if vibrating in harmony with something greater. It's no coincidence that sacred sounds, mantras, Gregorian chants, and Quranic recitations have been used for centuries to induce such states. Consider how hours of repeating a mantra, like the Vedic monk's Om, can seem to dissolve the self's boundaries, or the Kyrie Eleison in Christian liturgies, an invocation that resonates deeply and opens the heart. In Islamic Sufism, the dhikr, the rhythmic repetition of Allah's names, is more than prayer. It's a sonic journey. In Buddhism, on the other hand, the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is a vibration that is said to be able to transform karma. For the ancients, then, these were not just simple sounds, but a key to connect with reality, and with that something that started it all. A sound, a vibration that has been passed down through traditions all over the world. But is it really possible that the world and the entire cosmos began with a vibration, just as the ancient traditions say? There is a theory at the heart of modern physics that could bring science surprisingly close to this ancient idea. A theory that wasn't born in a temple but from blackboards full of equations, and yet it speaks the language of vibration. We're talking about string theory. This hypothesis suggests that matter's basic building blocks include electrons, photons, and quarks. They wouldn't be dimensionless points like in the standard model, but instead extremely thin filaments like tiny strings, the strings. These strings each vibrate in a specific way, and it's from that way of vibrating that the properties of the particle would derive. Mass, charge, force. A string that vibrates in a certain way manifests as an electron. Another vibration gives rise to a photon, and yet another to a gravity particle. Everything then, matter, energy, forces, would be the expression of a principle that sounds incredibly close to the statements of ancient spiritual traditions. But string theory doesn't stop here. To work, it requires extra dimensions of space, up to 11 according to some versions. dimensions that we can't see because they would be curled up on themselves at an infinitely small scale. But the heart of the theory remains this: reality, in its deepest essence, is made of vibration. On this topic, physicist Michio Kaku stated,
String theory describes the universe as a symphony of vibrating strings. The mind of God is the cosmic music resonating through 11 dimensions.
However, this statement should not be interpreted strictly in a religious sense, but rather as an expression of scientific wonder. In the face of a universe that seems more like a musical system than a mechanical machine, it's undeniable that string theory has a profound impact on everything we've discussed so far. It lets us reinterpret some of humanity's oldest statements in a modern way. When sacred texts say that God creates through the Word, when spiritual cosmology speak of an original sound from which everything originates, these are not just metaphors, but perhaps pre-scientific intuitions about a truth that physics is only now beginning to explore. How ancient peoples developed this intuition and preserved it over millennia remains a difficult mystery. Could an ancient advanced awareness have existed and been lost? Today, we still can't prove that sound created the universe, but we can state with increasing certainty that vibration could be at the foundation of everything that exists. And if this were true, then sound is not just an acoustic phenomenon, but a principle that shapes reality. There are truly so many unanswered questions, but at this point, we're really curious to know your opinion. Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support our work and to not miss the next videos. Until the next story.